All right, posted a note here on the course homepage that this course is set to meet Monday, Wednesday from 11 to 12:15. Okay, I propose we only meet once a week. Will that really hurt anybody's feelings? Okay, I will have plenty of material for that time, but I won't have enough for 16 full lectures. Plus, there'll be some projects. This will give you time to work on the projects, and if you need to meet with other students or so, is that okay? Would you rather have Monday or Wednesday? Would you want to meet on Mondays or meet on Wednesdays? Okay, everybody for Wednesday, raise your hand. Everybody for Monday, raise your hand. Okay, so we're meeting on Wednesdays. Yeah, it really doesn't matter to me. Okay, so I'm going to make a new item on here.
I'm driving from Norman and Mondays are horrendous.
Okay. Okay. We voted, and starting, what's next Wednesday? What's next week, actually? Starting the week of the 26th, we will be meeting on Wednesdays. Okay, everybody got that information? Okay, so we'll be meeting on Wednesdays. That's up there, so everybody should see it now. All right, so under content, I added a couple things already. And under week 1, I actually posted assignment 0. And it's also under the Dropbox. You'll notice there's an assignment 0. Not graded, but required. Okay, the way...
By required.
By required.
Shh. If you haven't noticed, I type very fast with lots of mistakes.
Really
There.
bad at mistakes.
I could care less. Okay. It's kind of like texting. You know, you get the gist of what it was. Okay. So under the way I do it is you're going to submit the work under the Dropbox unless I tell you to submit it on the quizzes. Some things I might have you submit under quizzes. But the actual assignments will be under the content page. Okay. So under week 1, I added your first assignment. Okay, and I'm going to download it so I can see it better. Okay. Now, in this class, we're going to be working with a whole bunch of different devices. Okay. And this is the current list of the devices we have. I did not add this phone into the list. But I actually asked, those of you who aren't in the classroom can't see this, but this is the phone from, I'm thinking, mid-90s?
Yeah, I used to have one of those.
Yeah.
Didn't they have a car type version of that though in the early 90s?
This is the car type version of it.
Was there?
Yeah, they actually had one built into the cars, you're right.
That's the one I'm thinking
Right.
of.
Way back when I was in the military, see, those of you who know something about me, but I was actually a jet engine mechanic. And I went over to the war, and they got infected with a virus over in Saudi Arabia. They lost everything on the computers in the early, mid-90s. So I rewrote their software for them. The colonel was like, what the hell are you doing as a jet engine mechanic? So they yanked me out of there, put me in the computer group. And they really had no position for me. But one of the first things I had to do was that was when cell phones were coming out, and the colonel wanted a cell phone. And if you know anything about the military, when the colonel says, get me a cell phone, guess what you do? You get him a cell phone. And it was just like that. It was this huge bag phone. We got all the way approved, actually got on the phone. He used it, and then the higher-ups came back and asked, why did he need a phone so bad? I'm like, I don't know. He's the colonel. He asked for a phone. Well, his answer was, I was going fishing that weekend, and I was on call. That was the wrong answer. Yeah, he had to answer to the higher-ups why we did this emergency purchase of this, back then, massively expensive cell phone for him to go on a fishing trip. But,
$5 on
Oh, they're gonna have the Galaxy on that.
we have the Xperia. Now, see, on this list, all the items, with the exception of the Sony, we actually have. We've had those for years. But what's one's missing? The Galaxy Tab 2 is missing, and
All of our Android phones are missing.
it seems that all of our Android stuff never made it back from Professor Stokely. And that's actually what the dean was telling me.
Because I know how to turn on the developer option on
Okay,
this.
the problem was he was released, but he's still a faculty here because he's arguing, whatever they call that.
Appealing.
He's appealing. And everything we do, it has to go through HR, and they got us uncertified letters, and they sent him one yesterday about his hearing, but they didn't send him anything about the missing devices, even though I supplied the inventory of them multiple times. So they're like, can we just let that wait a little while before we force them to get that stuff back to us? I'm like, what's going to happen is we're never going to see it. I kind of expect that. But at the moment, now, that being said, I've asked students in the past if they have any old devices they no longer want. I would love them I wouldn't mind give you some extra credit. I'm not paying you for them. But if you have any old cell phones laying around, I've actually used a whole bunch of them in forensics and a bunch of different classes. So if you have anything you no longer want to donate it, I will come up with some way of giving you extra credit for it, and that way we can use it in projects.
We should have known that about 2 months ago. I just sold a brick.
Yeah. But these are the current devices we have. So using a bunch of different stuff in this class. One of the first things we're going to do is figure out, we're going to be somewhat in groups. I don't know how exactly I'm going to do that. The reason is I have some students, like I have a guy living in Dallas. It's going to make group work a little difficult, but since it can be completed online, we'll figure it out. We'll get it all to work. But what I want you to do is by Sunday, actually I guess we could, just do it by Sunday. By Sunday, I want you to post inside the D2L Dropbox what device you would want to work on, or at least analyze. I will add the word initially, because you will have to do more. But that way I can at least get an idea where you'd like to start in this class. Some of the stuff we're going to do is we're extracting data from them. We actually be putting data on them. We have a bunch of different tools. We have Paraben, we have Celebrite, we have Encase. We have a lot of different tools we will be using. And in the fall, we actually had our advisory committee here. We actually have the FBI's on our advisory committee. And they actually brought the FBI van out here. And a few students showed up. I don't think any of you were there, were they? Okay, well, they showed us the FBI van. And they were showing us all the stuff they do. And I asked the question, because they were talking about how you image hard drives and cell phones and all this stuff. And I asked the question, I said, well, how many cell phones do you do? And the one guy said, well, I went away for training about 8-9 months earlier. He says, since he's come back from training about 8 or 9 months earlier, he's done one hard drive. Every other device has been cell phones. Because, I mean, come on. I'm assuming we all have a cell phone. More than one, probably, some of you. So that's why this is where everything's going. But the problem is, they're changing every hour. Yeah, I actually went to a conference last May in Vegas. It's kind of funny. Anyone know there's places don't want you to go to Vegas anymore? Did y'all hear that? Because I guess the GSA went there and wasted a lot of money and got all over the news. But when I asked Dr. Hendricks, hey, I need to go to this conference in Vegas, what do you think she said? No. Oh, hell no. I said, it's not a problem. But I said, to maintain my NK certification, I either have to go to training, put on by them, and that happens to be in Houston, so they have to pay me to go there for an entire week. And the class is about $2,500. Plus driving there, plus staying in a hotel for an entire week. Or I can go to Vegas for $600. What do you think she said? Go to Vegas. So it's a lot cheaper. But I went to Vegas, and I actually went to an Encase conference. Encase is a piece of software we use in forensics, but also works very well with mobile devices. Okay, well, that's why we're going to use a lot of that. So I don't know why. I heard Stokely showed it to the students once. Kinda.
I know it from cyber forensics over with Al I've used it over there.
I think
But
we used it to try and pull some stuff off the phones.
But we will be using it in here. Because I use it in forensics all the time. So I went to this conference all about guidance software and Encase. And one of the ones I went to was mobile device security using Encase. And one thing I learned, which was kind of cool, it's an iPhone, obviously, the only phone. It's got the Android crap. It's crap. This is the adult size, 6 Plus, in case you're wondering. Did you know, ever since I think it was the 4S, they've actually had, the phone actually has a hardware key on the device. So everything is actually encrypted with the hardware key. So if you got a copy of my backup, you could do a darn thing with it, because it's encrypted with the key on the device. No way to crack it. No one is able to crack it. Anyone know how to get into it? Something I never even thought of. Well, what hackers are doing nowadays is anyone have a car where you can sync your phone with your car? Like you can play all your music and all that stuff. I have a car. I have a Chevy Volt, probably the best car ever made, by the way. You don't own one, you're slackers. But they're laughing. I kept telling the last guy. But in my car, I can sync my phone with my car. I can listen to music. What happens is, when you actually sync your phone with your car, it actually copies the phone's contents to the car and saves it decrypted. So what hackers are doing is they're renting a car that has the sync capability, pulling the hard drive out, extracting all the phone data, putting the hard drive back in, returning the car, renting the next car, because it doesn't delete it. Remember a couple of years ago the issue we had with copy machines? Anyone hear that?
Yeah.
Like, we have a copy machine in our lounge. Every time you scan or print, it saves it to the device. Now ours does wipe it. But for a while there, copy machines weren't wiping it. A police department sold a copy machine at auction, and everything they've ever printed was on the hard drive. Well, the same thing's happening with rental cars. So people are renting a car, syncing their phone with it. Your entire phone is copied, decrypted, stored on the rental car. It's not removed. It's stupid. So that's how they're getting around it. So that's just some stuff we're going to play with in here. No, we're not going to go get a rental car. But I know. Maybe we should. Yes.
Just so you know, also iPhones, and this also applies for Androids, there's actually dialing codes that you can use. It's usually a pound or star, and then a special
To get into it,
number
yeah.
of codes,
Right.
and then another pound or star, and then you hit dial, and it immediately will send information about, real deep information about the phone back to the phone. It
Right.
also is where you can do what's called a hard reset,
Okay.
which basically it wipes it down to the BIOS. It wipes
Nice.
firmware, everything.
Nice.
And then it reinstalls it through the internet
Right.
back on, and that's how you can wipe up phone. That's why a
Nice.
lot of phone companies do it.
Well, so yeah, we'll be playing with a bunch of that stuff on there, and it's like we're going to be doing things like the difference between logical and physical. Do y'all know what the difference between logical image and a physical image is? Logical would be, I take this phone, it's a 128 gig phone. If we make a logical image, how big do you think it is? Not very large. It's really just the stuff I added to the phone that's accessible. Physical image will be 128 gigs. It's the entire physical device. So we'll be doing things like that. We'll be looking at how things are stored differently and like that. But so that's my plan. So by Sunday, go on that list, put down your choice from that list. If you have a phone, let me know. That would be awesome. And again, this is posted up there. And then next week, we'll actually come up with the first project on there. And I actually have some material to lecture over already, just that I needed to cover this other stuff today. Okay? So far, so good? Yeah. Any chance anybody has any phones they want to give me? I actually have a box of them downstairs, but they're really, really.
All I got's old, stupid flip phones.
Okay. So, but if you have any, that's great. I will most likely get Rose to buy me a couple new ones. Now, see, I didn't even stress the fact because I thought he returned the Android phones, but the bottom one here, the Sony Xperia, that's actually Roy's old phone. That's the one with the slide-out keyboard, isn't it?
The
Yeah,
gamepad.
but they'll still work. Okay, they're still going to work.
Best emulation machine.
All right, so that's the plan for this class, and I think that's all I'm going to cover today. So I'll actually let you know on Wednesday what we're going to cover, or what device you're going to use, and I'll have the first assignment up at that point. Okay. So any questions over, again, this is not graded, just do it. Okay, and if you don't do it, which I'm willing to bet a good percentage of the class will not do it, I'm just going to stick you in a group. So, And if you want to be in a certain group with someone, it's too bad. We're going to stick you somewhere. All right, but for the online people, again, I don't know how we're going to do it. I'll figure something out. Because I don't know if you noticed, but our entire degree can be completed online, which is nice, but it brings in some issues, especially like getting phones to people. We're going to figure it out one way or the other. All right, so if there's no questions about the assignment of what we're going to be doing in here, you are free to go. I'm going to stop this record. Oh, you got a question? Go ahead.
Actually, I was just going to say, shouldn't you maybe tell people online not to do this with their personal phones?
Actually, I wouldn't mind them using the personal phones, with the one exception. It's actually a very good question, is we are going to rotate. You're not going to have one phone for the entire class. That'd be stupid. But this is just to start with. So, but actually using, like the software we're going to be using, Encase for instance, it's kind of cool to see what you can get off your own phone. So, I mean, I do that stuff all the time. So, but when we get to something that could actually damage your phone, then I will let you know. Okay. Y'all know that currently iOS is no viruses on it? As long as it hasn't been jailbroken. You know, it's like, what, 90% of malware and spyware is on Android devices. So, kind of scary stuff. But when we get to the point where it could affect something, I totally plan on jailbreaking the iOS and all that stuff. So, it's not an issue. But just so we can play with it. But if you want to do it with your own phone, that's fine to see what's happening on it, but make sure for the projects you work on the device assigned to you.
Didn't last year at one of the conferences, like back in November, into the one that took place in Japan, they did actually hack into like the iPhone 5S or C or whichever one it was.
It was a jailbroken one, if I remember right.
I don't think they said it was jailbroken, but they went in through the Bluetooth device,
Oh,
and it took a
thank goodness.
two-stage attack to
They
actually
might have.
break into it.
It's just amazing the amount of stuff that's happening with all this stuff.
Is what's called a gold card.
Yeah. What's that?
It's basically on your own computer, you take a mini SD card,
Right,
and basically you're putting a certain program on it,
right,
and once that program's on it, you put it into the cell phone,
right.
and it unlocks
There.
everything.
You know,
you
I
can literally change the power settings, you can change the CPU, you can overclock it.
I remember seeing something about the iOS. It was a vulnerability that if it was plugged into a Mac that had this certain malware on it, it could actually affect the iOS through the malware on the Mac. I remember reading about that now.
If you go to YouTube and type in gold card,
Right.
All
right, we'll look at it.
People that will show you how to do
Okay.
Is there
All right.
a way to unlock it from Sprint to...
All right.
Sprint,
And-
I can tell you right now, gold cards are used all the time. I've got
Okay.
several folks.
So any other questions? Everybody okay? All right, I'm going to stop this, and I will see you Wednesday. Again, if you want to complete this online, that's fine. I will tell you how we're going to do it with groups when it's online at that point.